Welcome back, boys. Today we have one from Jubilee. Men versus men, the truth about masculinity. Check it out.
I remember one time I was walking on the street and this woman kept turning behind and I was like, oh, what's behind me? But then I realized I was a person that she was afraid of.
I apologize for my actions and things that I've done, but I don't apologize for me. I like me. I'm awesome.
I hate being a people pleaser, but at the same time, there's that flip side where the truth does hurt sometimes.
I made the mistake of saying I'd leave her if she was a dog.
Yeah,
and it didn't go well at all.
Men are lonelier today than ever before.
Unfortunately. I mean, it's funny, I go out in LA a lot to different restaurants, and I always see lots of groups of women at tables just eating out, having a great time, socializing. And I rarely see like groups of guys. Like guys are like rarely hitting each other up, like, guys, let's go get brunch. And it's like 5 guys together getting brunch. A lot of these restaurants, like, you just see packs of social circles within women really embracing kind of like just being together and having a good time. I always experience it when I go to the movies. It's like, it's rare that I would, hit up one of the guys and be like, hey, you want to go to a movie with me? Like.
Exactly, because the one-on-one with a guy is like super taboo and awkward, but girls have like no issue with that, right? Girls be like, I'm gonna go get lunch with my one girlfriend and we're gonna go hang out. If I just ask one of my buddies, hey, you and me, let's just go grab lunch, that just feels weird. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does.
I think for me, it's like neutral. I'd probably move to like somewhat disagree, because I think for me, like I've noticed as I've gotten older, when I was younger, it was harder for me to make male friends. And I wasn't like out at the time. I didn't even know I was really gay, but it just seemed like men clicked with each other more than what I was seeing, but I wasn't really fitting in with that. As I was getting older and I was trying to figure out who I was, and I was super anxious, and I'm like an anxious person to this day. I'm just not the greatest at communicating frustrations or even like happiness and stuff like that. So that kind of just maintained that constant reserved, like apathetic kind of monotone outlook I have on life. So as time's gone by, with my feminine traits being more noticeable, or like even now me like identifying as queer, I don't have issues having very close, like best straight male friends, and going out to movies, dinners, hanging out. We have like intimate relationships, not like romantic, but just like intimate, genuine connections that I think is hard for men to make with each other without stigma. And now I'm seeing it's getting easier for me to have straight masculine male friends, especially in the military, and no one bats an eye, versus I'm sure back then maybe it was a little bit harder if you had a gay male friend or just a guy around you all the time in your room or something. So I think it's gotten better.
When I was a freshman in college, I had friends that I hung out with. I had a group that I met in orientation, but I still ended up spending so much time distant from them, because even though I hung out with them, I was a very different person to them. And every avenue in which I felt like there was parts of me maybe I could share with them, I would also feel like they might judge me for it. Particularly because a lot of the friends, I exist on a weird precipice. I'm a conservative, but I have a lot of what might be considered more liberal hobbies. I'm into board games and D&D and video games, and a lot of those spaces are very heavily liberal dominant. There are parts of myself and my faith and my background that I don't often feel I can share with the men around me. Now, the obvious solution would be to formulate a community. But one thing I noticed is that, especially out in LA, but really in a lot of cities, it is very difficult to find any kind of sense of community amongst men. And it's not just about hanging out, but it's about feeling like you're understood and heard. And I think the suicide rates of men speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. Sure, we have easier ways.
I would say the easiest way to get to bonds, friends, brotherhood, is to go through something physically difficult with other men, like something strenuous that builds bonds. Gaming 10 hours a day on Discord, that doesn't build bonds. Also, going to school with other men, that doesn't build true bonds. You hear the stories, man. Military dudes still meeting up with each other. I know dudes, older dudes, that still meet up with their friends 30, 40 years later. Like, or like, yeah, 25 years later, after they have had like military together, they went through something difficult together, and that creates like a bond. And now modern society, what it has done slowly is destroy men's clubs and like men's only groups. Think Boy Scouts. They allowed women in, right? They destroyed that. Cigar like clubs, like men's clubs only. Does that make sense? Now everything has to involve women, and just a general like shift in people where they think being too close with a brother, with a friend, is somehow seen as gay. It's ridiculous, and it's like no wonder like people, like men, are so fucking lonely. It's because we crave that brotherhood, friendship, that deep bond that women just cannot give. There's certain things women are good at, and there's certain things they're horrendous at. And sometimes when you have an issue, you can only go to your brothers. But when you don't have that, well, it turns out bad for a lot of men.
To talk to people online. Suicide rates of men speak for themselves. Sure, we have easier ways to talk to people online, but there's nothing that connection still isn't just there. There's something more to loneliness that I think there is something inside that drive to men. When I hang out with my friends now, I'm a dad and they're not. There's something they don't get about me, and I don't get about them. They have this drive to do these things that I don't agree with, and I can't really talk to them about it because, for whatever reason, we don't talk about it.
I just want to say, listening to you all, it's fascinating because you talk about superficial, and it is. And like, I find it fascinating that you all, not you all, but it's uncomfortable to go somewhere with a friend one-on-one. And I find that a lot of males are sad and they are lonely because they do not have the space to feel like they can actually express emotions, because part of that protects against loneliness is vulnerability, and from that is intimacy. And it's not sex, it's just knowing that someone knows who you are through your soul.
Sometimes you, to get that bond, like let's say you go on a hike with your men, sometimes you have to be, sometimes some dude just has something on his chest that he just has to like, let out. And you kind of have to be, I guess, what do you say, like kind of like an emotional tampon. Like you have to be that guy. But the thing is, there's no outlet for that. If you have like a problem or an issue in life, there's nowhere you can go and turn to. You're gonna turn to the women? Good luck. You're fucked. If you like truly give your problems to a woman, the woman will lose respect for you and fucking cheat on you or leave you. The world is brutal. So, yeah, I mean, where do you find good brothers? Again, through some kind of physical activity. Something, yes, physical or like kind of stressful, something you go through together. Think sports or hiking, I don't know, rock climbing, MMA, fighting. That's a good option.
That will help protect against intimacy, but yet we can't have this if we can't go to lunch one-on-one.
I was raised to be tough.
Alrighty, well, honestly, for me personally, like I was raised primarily by women. My father wasn't really in the picture. My grandfathers were all away, and it was just kind of my mom, my aunts, and stuff like that. And we're a very traditional, like Taiwanese little family. So the concept of like masculinity wasn't something I got introduced to until I kind of started going to school. But I was never pushed to be a certain way or to be aggressive, protective, any of the traditional roles that we would associate with like being tough.
So my dad's Japanese Hawaiian mix, and then I actually lived in Japan too, so I kind of got to experience that in Japan. They do kind of do like the suppression of feelings. So it's like very, very like mask, surface level. I hide myself, and like I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna scream. I'm just going to like, if someone's mad at me, I just kind of bear the brunt, kind of tough. There's a toughness built out of like positivity, and there's a toughness built out of negativity.
Being reserved.
Sense? Yeah.
If you're reserved, if you can be a reserved person, I think, which is what I kind of said somewhat, is that I learned from my dad. He was a police officer, and for him, like, yeah, you could just be a tough guy. There's this idea of like machismo and showing yourself off. Sometimes the toughness comes from knowing when to turn the switch on and off. and that's that reserve level, which is why I put myself at somewhat, because I think most people believe that toughness is this idea of like, you know, yeah, I go around, I'm the boss, I'm the man.
I was gonna say that's interesting because I'm over here for the exact flipped reason. Like I was never raised on the idea that like suppressing emotions is tough. I was raised like you could express emotions. For me, when I was being brought up as tough, it was like, I don't know what I would consider like the classical, like the
only expressions that are allowed to, no, the only emotions that are allowed to be expressed as a man is like victim, weakness, like just all the like weak emotions. You're not allowed to express anger or any kind of like ambition, drive, because that's seen as toxic. Yeah, it's a horrendous culture for men.
1980s tough of like, hey, tough, it was like, I don't know what I would consider like the classical, like the 1980s tough of like, hey, if a kid at school is messing with you, you don't go tell the teacher, you handle it, right? Like those, like that's the sort of tough that I was taught. Like you could get mad at things, you could be sad about things, but you gotta fix the problem and you gotta be self-reliant and handle it yourself. That's sort of what toughness more means to me. Like I don't like what we call machismo, like that sort of toughness, because that feels like fake. Like I kind of like the idea of like, hey, real toughness is you can show emotions, but you got to take care of yourself. You got to handle your business, sort of thing.
Machismo's like the Chihuahua yapping.
Exactly, right? You got to be like you got to be German Shepherd tough, not Chihuahua tough, right?
For me, there's like 3 interesting intersections that I dealt with. One is being black, another is being African, and then a third was just having a predominantly Muslim household. And all 3 of those groups have very kind of strong gender roles, very strong idea of what masculinity is and what a man should do and what a man should provide. And so growing up, you know, especially just watching my own father and the men in my family, you know, there really wasn't room for weakness or crying or being emotional. A lot of times, what I was taught was you have to work hard, you got to take care of your family, you got to stay strong, and it applied across all 3 kind of intersections of my identity. So really, it's been an interesting journey as I've gotten older to try to understand that maybe it is okay to have to be sad in some cases, or to seek out comfort, when it comes to like emotional connection and things like that.
I had a very different upbringing. I was the youngest of 2 brothers, and I grew up as the baby.
I have something different to say, like different lens. Like I am 21. It's not that long ago since I went to school, and thinking back, it is such a feminine structure or like culture in general in today's society, where basically if you're a boy, especially in the US, if you are a boy, that is a bad thing in the school system, because you have energy, you can't sit still, you always question things, you always talk, you have much energy, you're not a little girl, because that is what they're trying to do in these classrooms. Is like you're a little bit too much of a boy, they put you on medication or ADHD or whatever, because you don't sit still and be a good girl, right? The task of just sitting still and doing your paper and like being all neat and all this shit, that is a feminine thing. That is an extremely feminine trait. And a lot of men, I wonder how many men got just medicated because they were too much of a boy. It's a very sad thing. And at home as well, it's like you, if you have like a weak father or non-existent father, you get raised by a woman who maybe deep down doesn't even like men. And like, it's like, how the hell can you become a proper man when you have never had masculine influence in your life? In school, all your teachers were female. You don't have a father, or you have a weak father. Like what are men supposed to do? Like, no wonder dudes grow up and they have no like emotional like control. They like lash out, and they do, some men do heinous crimes because of that.
Girl of the family. I was the youngest of 2 brothers, and I grew up as the baby girl of the family. And so I've only been doing this man thing for about 5 years.
Oh.
And so for me, I was always allowed to express myself, to be soft. And I looked to my dad for some of these masculine qualities, like being a provider. That's something that I hold also as well. But then I looked to my mom for getting through really tough things. So both I have learned how to be tough, but in very different ways that I hold true today. And I think because I've lived to 25 years from a woman's perspective, and then now recently. And so for me, toughness, there's a traditional part. There's the don't show emotions, be tough, be strong, be the provider, be masculine. But the other side, I see women, and when I think of tough, I think of people who speak about sexual assault experiences. And that's something that I'm like, that's really tough to do, but they do it. I didn't know what trans was growing up, and so I didn't have an idea until really I entered my college years. And that is when I found out what it means to be a trans man. Everyone told me who I should be and what I should do with my life. And so being trans kind of felt like it was its own rebellion in a way, but it was a way to honor who I was as a person.
For me, it's like living with disability and neurodivergent. I was late identified with autism ADHD, like for the past 5 years. So it was also kind of for me, like I was living in a world that wasn't designed for me, but also I grew up like with a dad who was like disabled as a kid. So I kind of saw like how culturally it's shameful and kind of stigma around that. And then also kind of seeing how it's being treated within my own family, how it's like kind of like, oh, it's bad luck to be disabled, everyone's just this way. I kind of watched my own family member like struggle to ask for help support because of the stigma.
I often compare myself to other men.
Well, I think for me, so I grew up with 2 younger brothers. I grew up with my dad in my life. And I think in that sense, I think brotherly competition, we were always like comparing with each other. Like we did wrestling together, we did all these sports together, rugby, sailing. So like, oh, I got the better time, or like we played video, like all these things, we would just compare with each other. And so I think that also kind of just like being in a competitive state in sports, like you are naturally drawn to, and then competing with men or boys at the age or whatever, right? You just kind of look at that, like I feel like there's always that in the back.
Competition is a very healthy thing for men because you improve. You might be the shittest runner or fighter or whatever in like these settings, but the thing is you will improve because the people who are better than you are going to help you. Like right now, competition is a giant fucking taboo, especially at work. After women started to enter the workforce, you had to be more of like a woman to keep your job. You had to be less competitive. It's like you can no longer just show up to work, fucking destroy everything, get the most sales, or like you can't compete to get like the best position and like fucking conquer. You can't do that at the jobs anymore because you have to think about feelings and you have to, like, if you work together with women, you have to be like, oh yeah, like I fucking did everything, but you know, she helped me. I couldn't have done it without her. Like you can't say like, oh yeah, I did fucking everything. Boom, I'm the best. You can't do that. So then problems come, bro.
Your mind or whatever, right? You just kind of look at that. Like I feel like there's always that in the back of your mind. Like you're like, oh shoot, like could I, outcompete this person? You know what I mean?
So in a similar way, I grew up, my dad always had the saying, it was like, compare yourself to people who are above you, don't compare yourself to people who are below you. So it was kind of, and did a lot of sports and stuff growing up. So there is always that sense of like looking around and seeing what the competition is, but also I don't feel this need to like always be in competition though, you know?
Yeah.
So like I could look around and be inspired by other people, and I could see like, oh, this person is doing so much more with their life or doing more creatively or this and this and so forth, and I could be inspired by that, but I don't necessarily see that being like necessarily jealousy. Right.
Yes.
My career in the world of adult entertainment, it's a double-edged sword. There's definitely times where I'm comparing myself to my fellow coworkers, and that does affect my views on myself a little bit, but at the same time, my masculinity and my manhood is pretty secure because of this. Whether we like it or not, one of the societal markers of manliness and manhood.
Leo, what are you doing? I'm disappointed in you. As another Leo. I don't know where they find these dudes. From what I've seen, like they're not the best like representation. They're not the best representation for like men. Does that make sense? It's like they have like trans person and like just in general like you get what you get from a Jubilee video, huh?
Manhood is, whether we like it or not, one of the societal markers of manliness and manhood is your ability to attract the opposite sex, or just, you know, attract mates and things like that. And being fairly successful at that, even before I got into this line of work, really helped solidify my confidence in my masculinity and my manhood.
I compare myself at work all the time to people who are really good at their job. And I'm like, that guy is way better than me at work, or at my work, you know, that woman is better than me. But I don't use it as like a, oh man, I suck, poor me, right? Yeah. I'm not a victim. I'm gonna use that as, I'm gonna work hard and I'm gonna get to be as good as that person and maybe better someday.
You see, that's where the ceiling is, and you're like, okay, I have more room to grow.
Like, it's possible to be that good. Yeah. Exactly, and I think that's positive masculinity, is like, you're not competing like, I'm gonna tear you down. You're competing like, I'm gonna get myself good.
For me, like my dating life was negatively affected by the fact that I used to seek validation from other men by how attractive my girlfriend was. And so I would like try to date the hottest girl possible just so that I can like get that approval, right? And a lot of times we wouldn't even have a connection, or we wouldn't have necessarily, we wouldn't be the right partners for each other. But it negatively kind of skewed how I did everything. I went through a huge weight loss journey, and I was obsessed with achieving like a six-pack and being really fit. And that's, you know, unfortunately, the type of media that I consumed and the type of messages that I got, you know, was kind of reiterating this ideal that like men had to be kind of gym going. And so, you know, I find myself a lot of times looking at people in the fitness industry and seeing how I can, you know, look more like them. It does cause a form of dysmorphia where I'm not quite ever happy. I'm constantly in some form of dieting, some form of like abuse to my body. There's some pros with that too, right? And that like it has made me go from being someone who sits at a desk and doesn't take care of himself to someone who does.
I've never really had I suppose you could say, envious personality. I've never looked at somebody else and said, man, what do they have that I want? I don't know why I don't have that. It's not like, you know, it's a benefit for me to some extent, I think. But when I look at, for example, the saints in history and the men that I consider models, I'm not comparing who I am to them. I think of it rather as what sort of things need to be like achieved, you know, when I see what they do, not comparing myself to them, rather I'm just seeing what they've done and I'm deciding on my own, what do I want to do.
Like, I think it's interesting how you explain it, like and I love that you're so independent on how you express yourself or how you go by like your lifestyle. But for me, like honestly, I compare myself to so many other men because it's to make me more palatable. Okay. So like being raised like again with only a Taiwanese family, and I'm the oldest firstborn like American child by like 10 years by my little brother and everybody else. Like for my family, especially in Taiwan, who's still actively racist and stuff like that, I compare myself to their norms of what a man should be. So that when they see photos of me, when they see my success, it's not something that's knocked down by my demographic or my mix. Or the same thing on the other side of the family. Like I compare myself to a lot of other black men because I was not raised with black men or black people really. So, but the world is gonna look at me and see that automatically. So I compare that on both ends to portray myself to be more palatable and I don't know, like accepted on either side. Even in the military, like my entire job, like if any of y'all were in the military, like your entire success rate, or like, you know, sometimes they don't even look at you, just like you can be a huge piece of shit as long as you can run a 2 mile in 5 minutes, you know? So it's just, for me, it's gotten me to a good place where comparing myself to other men, not in a competition way, but to help me define my masculinity, what makes me a man, has helped me a lot to get to who I am.
As the only guy on this side, I'm actually curious. I'm curious to know if you're on that side and you feel like it's a negative thing or it's a positive thing.
Yeah, so I'm in the fitness industry. I do coaching. I post about like being in good shape, like physiques and all that stuff. So I keep up with like all of the fitness influencers. And sometimes like I'm not perfect at comparing myself, and maybe I shouldn't in the negative aspects, right? But in the positive aspects, it's like, shoot, he's like really good at this. Maybe I should like change my form so I could like do that movement a little bit better. But then sometimes like I'll even catch myself oh no, I like fell off the wagon of my diet or whatever, or I got sick, or I got through an injury, and I'm like, now I'm not going to the gym, and I'm like, gosh, look at all these guys, like they're in so much better shape than I am, and that's where it would negatively impact me specifically, is when I start comparing myself to like, they look better than I do, and I'm like not really looking at my situation. We're not on the same playing field.
Early into my transition, I was looking at these father figures, men figures, what is masculine, what is maleness. And so, does it hurt me? Yes, it did, because I was starting to lose a bit of who I was, because I had to make sure, don't stand with my hips, stand straight. Don't use my hands when I talk, be more strong and sturdy. And
that's interesting, because don't use your hands when you talk.
That's just an Italian thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I use my hands constantly, and I've never once been told to
Donald Trump, the president of the United States, all he does is talk with his hands.
Yeah, you gotta go.
No, but there's some mannerisms that are considered more feminine than others.
I get it.
I had to change a bit of that, but I still hold a lot of those feminine traits really strongly, and I feel so blessed to actually have that, because now I can actually interact with women without making them feel uncomfortable, because if I want to compliment them, I might come off a little bit more feminine, but it makes them feel okay, and I can still make their day a bit brighter. Yeah. And so I do compare myself, like, I'm 5'7" on a good day, so like that's kind of hard, but I've been able to at least be on somewhat degree, because I don't fully compare myself to other men, because I'm not them, I'm myself. Early into my transition, I did try to become somebody I wasn't. I was looking at the very binary men in my life and on the internet and trying to live up to those standards and be that person. And I realized throughout my journey as a trans man, I don't need to be that person. I need to be myself.
I have apologized for being myself.
I've absolutely apologized for being myself, because I realize that I have stepped into a male role, and there's some things that were not good. You know, I might be rude, or I might come across as something that I'm not. And so I've had to apologize, like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it this way, and I understand how that affected you.
Yeah, I think I've also apologized for myself, just like my personality. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'll say something that somebody takes in like a wrong way, and like all of a sudden I feel bad. I think I'm very guilty of being like, and I've like tried so hard to get out of this, but being a people pleaser, like making sure that everyone's happy, everyone's taken care of, no contention, when in like reality I should just be okay with like just saying what's on my mind. I think for me, like if I say something that's like, oh, being overweight is unhealthy, or being skinny, I was a skinny guy, being skinny is also unhealthy. I don't like want that to just be like, even though it's a fact of the matter, kind of a statement, I don't want to say like, you know, somebody who's watching me who is skinny is like, oh man, this guy's like really shedding light to my situation. He's making me feel bad because I'm overweight, or I'm skinny, or yada yada. So it's like, I think I kind of shy away from saying stuff like that, but I should be a little bit more, I shouldn't be worried about offending people if it's like a matter of fact, if it's coming from a place of like genuine love, knowledge, and care, then I should just be me.
I'm a person who I very much want the truth, and that often comes across as combative or debating, and so a lot of the times I'll want my mom to see the truth in something, or my wife to see the truth, and I'll say, well, no, that's not true. She'll watch something on the news, and I'll say, no, well, actually, okay, we have to consider this perspective, and that's not quite the way that is, and I'm trying to have a conversation with her about it, because I do want there to be an understanding of the truth, because I don't want there people to be wrong. And the thing I get, and some of you may have heard this before, is you always have to be right. Yeah, I hope so. I want to be right. Why would I want to be wrong? Why would I ever want to be wrong? I know what they mean by that. They're saying that, like, you know, I can't stop, right? But it's not, for me, it's not about that. It's like, I don't want you to believe something wrong. I don't want to believe something wrong either. Maybe I'm wrong. And the only way I can get more out of you is if I probe and I ask more questions and I get more information. But I have apologized for it on multiple occasions. I'm sorry for having the last word. I'm sorry for saying this. I'm sorry for getting your goat with this information. I'm trying to understand. And so I definitely had to apologize a lot.
I think for me, it's like what we kind of mentioned was like, yeah, I think for me, it's why I kind of chose to be like, disagree to be like, oh, be of my authentic self, is because I kind of grow up like being late identified neurodivergent and kind of living in a neurotypical society where I always over apologize. I think being over apologize for my existence. I think for so long it's been like, oh, I apologize for like interrupting people, or I apologize for like, thinking differently, we're being different for everything.
So
I overcompensate everything.
Are you disagree
But
because
then
it changed?
when I kind of come to terms with like when I kind of surround myself with neurodiverse people, we all interrupt each other. It's fine. It's just normalized. I think how society's social construct is like it kind of forced us to be in a place where we're like we felt less than our difference are we had to overcompensate our difference in being that. So for me, it's like sometimes I kind of look back. I was like, oh yeah, all these times when I kind of like done all these things, I had to apologize.
I personally don't even consider it apologizing. I consider it choosing peace, because I've been in relationships where hypothetical examples sometimes will come up, like if I was a dog, would you still love me? And you know, I used to kind of just be tell it like it is, tell the truth, or just say my opinion as is, unfiltered. And a lot of times, you know, what I learned as I got older is it's better sometimes to understand beyond the surface, and just, you know, either apologize or choose peace in these scenarios.
You don't feel like it's placating?
No, don't roll like, bro, don't like give in to these like stupid questions and ideas. If a woman asks you like a stupid ass question, you answer truthfully. And what will happen is, this shit has happened to me multiple times, man. It's like women say some absolutely stupid shit sometimes, and I strongly disagree, and I do not budge. No matter what kind of bullshit they spew, I'll just say it how it is. And you know what happens? The woman doesn't like me less. She doesn't walk away. She doesn't run away. She respects me more. And you know what I get? Sex. Like, this is the thing, like, the strategies men use of like bending over and giving in to the woman, it's horrendous if you want to be in a relationship or to get laid or whatever.
You don't feel like it's...
Or choose peace in these scenarios.
You don't feel like it's placating? You don't feel like it's...
Because, you know, sometimes it's, you know, some people want to be told, hey, do you, you know, tell me you love me. And sometimes it's not easy to just say, tell me you love me. So you come up with a hypothetical and you say, hey, if I gained 300 pounds, would you still be with me? And, you know,
Of course not. The thing is, there's a lot of unwritten stuff in relationships that are kind of just like common sense. It's like, if I get a woman and she's fit, it's like there's kind of like a unsaid thing. It's like, okay, you gain this amount of weight, like I'm gonna leave, like I'm just gonna get a new woman. And the same goes for me. If I become a bum and I lose my job and I have no ambition and no drive to improve myself, if I fucking gain weight and become fat, of course the woman is gonna leave me. It is what it is. And some people try to like fight reality with that shit. And like, you just end up alone, essentially. You get screwed over.
Like, let's say you're a fitness person and you would probably, let's say, not do it. You know, I don't think that was the question really, right? Yeah. You have to see past it. And so whenever I've had situations, and it's mostly in relationships, I'll be honest, like outside of relationships, I'm unapologetic.
It's like, what do women want? They want like that stable guy that is the rock, basically. Let's just take that as an example. You are the rock. So the thing is, if you start crying and whining like a woman, the woman is gonna be like, what the fuck? That is my job. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And the woman is gonna leave and cheat on you. Congratulations.
Energetically who I want to be. Yeah. But in relationships, I tend to guard her feelings a little bit more. And to me, a form of choosing peace is to just apologize and make sure.
This shit started with the boomers. They were the ones that were like, oh my God, happy wife, happy life. And then they live a fucking miserable existence, man. They have to ask permission to fucking go out and see their friends, or like they're just chained. They are in a horrendous position to be in.
Sure that, she feels okay about what happened.
I think there's like a fine line between like sacrificing your own thoughts and then also keeping the peace. I think that's like, you have to be very aware of it. Between like, 'cause I hate being a people pleaser. I've been told you're a people pleaser. Like, I just can't express myself because what I'm gonna say is going to hurt somebody and they're gonna take offense to it, and that's their choice. But at the same time, there's that flip side where it's like, you can't like, the truth does hurt sometimes.
I made the mistake of saying I'd leave her if she was a dog.
Yeah, like
It didn't go well at all.
I apologize for my actions and things that I've done, but I don't apologize for me. I like me. I'm fucking awesome, all right? So like, I don't feel there's anything. I may do something, I may say something. I know I have good intentions, but if it makes somebody feel a certain way, I will apologize for that. But that's not apologizing for me being me, though. That's hey, I misspoke, I missaid something, or I did something, but me as who I am, I don't feel like I have much to apologize for.
That makes a lot of sense with like friends that you can cut easy, but like, I mean, a lot of us I think talked about it this way, but especially for me, it's like my family, my wife, people that I'm not gonna just be like, well, I could just go find other people. Do you ever feel it? How do you deal with it when it's like your friends or your family or someone you're close to like in a relationship with?
I've had to cut my family off at a certain point. Like I've gotten no contact for many years.
Okay.
Because again, I like who I am and I'm not gonna change who I am just to fit within the family dynamic and so forth. But through that, we found a way to work with each other, understand each other a lot better, and then now I'm back in the family being unapologetically me, but they accept me because they're like, hey, that's who he is.
Do you think cutting yourself off was necessary for them to get that?
I think it was necessary just given the situation that we needed some space so we could both kind of understand.
Let's check some comments. I had no idea going to lunch with a male friend was considered weird. Yeah, and people wonder like, oh, fucking male loneliness epidemic. Why are men dropping like flies? It's like what the fuck? We are humans. We are animals. We need that bond. We need that connection. What a weird sample selection on this video, Jubilee. Yeah, I noticed that. These guys weren't like those guys. You know what I mean? The dude just doesn't give a fuck. Say it how it is. And like, yeah, what are you gonna do? I'm fucking stronger than you. Try me. Of course, they would never do that, but it would be funny to have guys like that on. Anyway, boys, what do you guys think? I catch you boys on the next one. Take care of yourself.